Unpacking the Micah Parsons trade request from the Dallas Cowboys, ladies and gentlemen, yet again. We are here in Mike Florio's kitchen. This is a wild situation in Dallas. This is very different than the Washington situation with Terry McLaurin. This is a premier player for America's team, straight up saying, I don't want to be here anymore, and being disgruntled with ownership. We have weird activity when it comes to the agent not being there, so we're going to unpack that whole thing. Talk about what a trade could look like and possible trade partners if the Cowboys do decide to trade Micah Parsons, which I don't think they will.
Oh, well, I would like to say things escalated quickly. They escalated slowly. This has been percolating, slow burn, simmering for a while. Micah Parsons, Cowboys linebackers, finally had enough. He wants out. Long statement posted on social media that confirmed a lot of the things that I said last night in Canton when Maria Taylor and I were talking about the Parsons situation. It's simple.
So real quick, I mean, this is a slow burn with Micah Parsons specifically, but it's also a slow burn just with the Dallas Cowboys. This exact same thing happened with Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott, where Jerry Jones and his front office and ownership group, they try and do business without agents present. And they try and get players into these weird one-on-one situations where they probably talk them down, talk their numbers down. They probably try and get them into bad leverage positions. And Micah Parsons had enough. And Micah Parsons said, I don't want to have these conversations without my agent. In his statement, he talks about how he thought he was just having a conversation with the Joneses. He thought, He thought, hey, we're just talking about leadership. We're talking about this. We're talking about that. All of a sudden, we're in contract negotiations. And Jerry came out and said, yeah, I thought we had a deal done. So it just shows a totally different philosophy from the two parties. But now that players are a little bit more versed in contracts and what they should be getting. And, everything's way more transparent. Numbers are out there. They're reported on. They're easy to find. Players just understand it a little bit more, the business side of the game, versus just signing whichever in front of them. So I think players have a little bit more power in this, and not just power as far as like demanding money or whatever, but just more of a, hey, this is how I expect the process to go.
They've been trying to get a deal done directly with him, and they've been taking the position that he agreed to a deal, and that's that. And there's nothing else to do. And it is asinine because the collective bargaining agreement makes it clear that if you do have a deal, you need to reduce it to writing quickly, as soon as practical. You have to put it in writing, and you can't cut the agent out. If a player is self-represented, that's one thing. But if a player is represented by an NFLPA certified,
to have a player who has an agent and then trying to get the deal done sans the agent is crazy in 2025.
Agent, that is the exclusive representative. That is the person you have to go through. And for whatever reason, the Cowboys have refused to deal with David Mulugeta on behalf of Micah Parsons. Now, there could be an effort by the Cowboys to say, we've talked to him. But remember this, there's other clients that Athletes First represents that are on the Cowboys. And I said last night, they've talked to him about other things, but not Micah Parsons. They haven't engaged in Micah Parsons. And when Michael Hawley and I were breaking it down today, I suggested it might be as simple as the Cowboys are waiting for Mulugeta to make the first move. Now, Parsons says Mulugeta has tried to get their attention, but they just ignore him. It really is ridiculous. And I don't know what the Cowboys expected. What were they waiting for? Were they not going to do anything until Micah said, okay, put in writing the thing that I agreed to in March, even if I didn't agree to anything in March, and even if it's not done until it's done? It annoyed me when I first saw people saying that the Cowboys and Micah Parsons have a handshake deal, as if that means anything. It means nothing.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of sounds like Dallas or whoever. It sounds like they're operating in like 1995, where these handshake deals and whatever still exist. Like, it's just not a thing anymore in 2025. And Jerry, this is just insane. I mean, what's it say to his players? What does it say to CeeDee Lamb? What's it say to all these guys on the team? You're looking around, similar to Cincinnati, where the Trey Hendrickson and Shamar Stewart stuff. It's like, what does that say to the other players on the roster? How unserious do they take you and take the team? Dallas, every year we hear, oh, well, Dallas wants to win. Dallas wants to do this. Well, the fact of the matter is Dallas hasn't won anything since before the year 2000. I mean, in the last 25 years, they've done absolutely nothing. You're well on your way to 3 decades of just kind of nothing. Kind of the same old song and dance. A couple years in there with 12 wins, a couple years in there with high-powered offenses, a couple years in there with a playoff berth, but nothing of note. And this is kind of why. Like, operating like this when other teams like the Ravens and the Eagles and even the Saints, how they operate financially and with contracts and how they do business, just on the business side of things. Dallas just seems way behind. It seems like a mom and pop. It seems like they kind of run it like a mom and pop small business who's still doing, their documents on pieces of paper instead of going to the digital age.
A handshake deal in any setting is not worth the paper it's not written on. Now, there are some contracts that can be binding without a document in writing. There are some that can be. In this context, it clearly has to be reduced to writing and signed before the league can even begin to approve it. No side deals, no verbal deals, nothing other than a formal contract counts. So what do we do now if you're the Cowboys? Well, maybe this gets them to wake up.
I think they have to pay him. I don't think there's any world where they trade him. You're talking about a 26-year-old guy who's one of the, if not the best defensive player in the league. He is, if he's even in the conversation with Myles Garrett and TJ Watt, which, I mean, he is, but he's still way younger than them. So, you can kind of, if you average that in, he's probably the most valuable defensive player in the league at the peak of his powers. You got him. You want to win. You're in a win-now situation. You have CeeDee Lamb, you have Dak Prescott. You just paid Dak Prescott a crazy contract. We all know Jerry Jones wants to win now. He doesn't have time to rebuild. You don't really have a choice here. The alternative is the Khalil Mack situation. So let's talk about that. So Khalil Mack, now it's a little bit different because Khalil Mack was a defensive player of the year. Micah Parsons has never been defensive player of the year, but similar age, similar situation. Khalil Mack is traded, couple of firsts, I think a couple of thirds in there, a couple other things getting tossed around. But if you look at the Khalil Mack trade, that's probably about the value of Micah Parsons, somewhere in there. You also have to factor in, if you do trade for Micah Parsons, you're trading for him to sign him to probably the most expensive non-quarterback contract. Like, all of a sudden now he's getting above TJ Watt money. So you're talking about what, like $40 million a year, somewhere in there. So it's got to be a team that wants to win now, that also has a lot of salary cap space. If you look at the salary cap on overthecap.com, teams that kind of fit that mold are the Raiders, the Rams, the Commanders. Now, the Raiders have an interesting thing where it's like, well, how does this factor into the Christian Wilkins situation? We have to kind of wait how that resolves, but they do have a lot of space. Max Crosby and Micah Parsons on the defensive line would be absolutely insane. They did just get Geno. They have a bunch of young offensive playmakers that kind of helps them out with the cap a little bit. They're all in rookie deals. Maybe this is the time where the Raiders go in and do this. Kind of makes sense, TBH. The Titans, I don't think you're there yet. As far as like, if you're the Titans, are you willing to offload a bunch of first-round picks? I don't know about that. The Rams are an interesting one. So the Rams do this quite a bit. The Rams are all about throwing away first-round picks, throwing away future picks in order to win now. They might be the most win now. They are the most win now team out of all the teams we just talked about, because they have Matt Stafford, who's way older than Jaden Daniels, right? Jaden Daniels and the Commanders are down here too. We'll talk about them in a second. But Stafford wants to win now, needs to win now. They just got Devontae Adams. Sean McVay has flirted with retirement in the past. This seems like a team that makes a lot of sense to say, hey, here's 3 first-round picks, other stuff to make it work. We have the money to do it. Aaron Donald retired. Okay, let's go ahead and get our next big centerpiece of the defense. Let's try and win now. I think the Rams make a lot of sense if the Cowboys actually wanted to make this deal. And then the Commanders, it kind of makes sense, cap wise. They are in a win now window, but if you put this up against the Terry McLaurin situation, it's kind of similar to the Commanders, where it's like, okay, you don't have to go all in. You have Jaden Daniels in his second year. Theoretically, your winning window is pretty wide. Like, maybe just kind of organically build this thing. Maybe you don't go all in just yet. Maybe you kind of play this out a little bit of a slow burn. So out of all these teams, if you told me Parsons was getting traded, which I don't think he is, I think the Raiders and the Rams make the most sense in this one.
Maybe they realize we better take this seriously and get this guy paid. And what if now, all of a sudden, they call up David Mulugeta and say, okay, sorry, we're sorry. We're sorry. Let me just say this. We're sorry. Let's get this deal done. How much do you want? Here's the checkbook. You write the check. How much do you want? What if Parsons says, too late, effed around and found out, I want out, set me free? What are they going to do?
Well, the difference between McLaurin and Parsons is that I don't think the market would be there for Terry McLaurin. You're 5 weeks away from the NFL season kicking off, or 4 weeks away. Terry McLaurin is at the bad age for a receiver to go get him and pay him. I don't think the market would be there. Maybe a team or two, but if Micah Parsons went on the market, all of a sudden every single team in the NFL at least has the conversation of, can we do this? Now, obviously, some teams can't do it. Some teams just they can't trade for him, one, but then two, they can't pay him. They can't give him this huge contract they're going to want to give him. So, but every team would have that initial conversation of what do we have to move around to do this? This does not happen often, to where a player like this is on the market. So Parsons would absolutely have a market. 100. I mean, obviously, but this would cause, if it was a straight up like, hey, I'm not going back to Dallas, I don't care what they pay me, I am getting traded, all of a sudden it would be an absolute like firestorm from the NFL of who can do it. And like I said, I think the Rams and the Raiders jump quickly to the front of the line.
They're going to trade him? I've already seen reports that they're not going to trade him, or they have no intention to trade him. Okay, that's fine. Teams are going to start calling now. Hey, how about this? How about that? How about this? 2 first-round picks plus for Micah Parsons, along with the willingness to make him the highest paid player on the defensive side of the ball in NFL history, or the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. So we'll see what happens. But the Cowboys aren't quite in checkmate.
Cowboys are in a weird spot too, because let's say you do have to trade Micah Parsons. Okay, well, you are quote unquote in a win now situation, but you have an aging quarterback on an enormous salary. You just lost your best player in his prime, and you get back, let's say 3 first-round picks. I don't know if it would be that high, but at least 2. Well, now you're kind of in a rebuild. Like, you're all of a sudden now it's like, well, that's something you do when you are in a rebuild. So how do you execute the rebuild with a $60-something million a year quarterback? Do you somehow get out of the Dak contract? I don't even know. I don't know the fine print or the small print there, but it kind of completely shakes the philosophy of the Cowboys. And then you do have to factor in Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones is not at the age. He has made it very clear he is trying to win now. He is not interested in a rebuild. But what if he's forced to rebuild? How does that change? What does he do? That would be a very interesting chess match just within Dallas's own organization.
Man, they're in check. They are definitely in check. And if I know the Cowboys the way I think I know the Cowboys, they'll put themselves in checkmate. The Cowboys are in check, and their next move will put them in checkmate. Unless they prove us wrong. Unless they show that they're willing to acknowledge their mistake. And hey, that may be the only way out of this at this point, is to say we got it wrong.
Yeah, the only way out now for the Cowboys is to say we got it wrong and overpay Micah Parsons. That's really the only way to do it.
Maybe there's a power struggle going on within the organization between Jerry and Steven. Maybe it's time for Jerry to give it up
Yeah, I mean, if this really was fully orchestrated by Jerry, as far as like all these mistakes, yeah, I mean, this is tough. This is a tough one. It might be time for him to kind of, I don't know if he's still doing his daily radio show down there in Dallas, but it might be time for him to take a couple steps back.
And I know that's a difficult conversation to have, and I don't want it to sound ageist at all, but it is similar to the issues that we all deal with aging parents. You take the car keys away. It may be time to take the car keys away if this is a Jerry problem.
Yeah, I mean, if this is a Jerry problem, you do have to look at it just like the comparison I was making in the business, where sometimes an aging owner of a business, they're not up to current trends, and they're making mistakes, and they're putting the business in a bad situation just because they're not there. They haven't caught up. It's gone, the business or the industry, the whatever's kind of went by them. So it might be what's happening here with Jerry, and maybe not even in a football sense, but just in a roster management contract kind of world.
If this is something that Jerry has created by taking the position, we will not talk about anything. The only thing we're going to talk about is putting in writing the agreement that we reached with Micah, even if he doesn't believe we reached an agreement. It really is something.
Work.
What a Friday afternoon news dump. It prompted the first PFTPM of the non-PFTPM season. Micah Parsons wants out of Dallas. What happens next? This is what you like, Cowboys. You want this. You want to be the center of attention. I don't know that you wanted it like this, especially if Parsons is serious. And we don't know. We don't know what it's going to take to turn.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see how serious Mike is, because, yeah, he's got all the leverage right now, obviously. If he really does put his foot in the ground and say, you know what, I've had enough, I'm out of here, whew, that's a tough look for the Cowboys.
Turn him around at this point. Hey, Micah, how about 42? Hey, Micah, how about 43? Hey, Micah, how about 44? Hey, Micah, how about 45?
Yeah, what was the Watt deal, 41? So it has to be higher than that. So, I mean, that's your floor. That is the absolute floor.
If he says nope, man, it's going to be something. Congratulations, Cowboys. You are the main focal point of the news cycle. You did it. It's like the world's greatest cup of coffee and Elf. Congratulations. You did it.
Well, I mean, this kind of happens in hockey with Florida teams, but I wonder if like Parsons would turn down like 42 or 43 with the Cowboys, but would take 41.75 with the Rams. Like a situation like that where it's like, if he's going to stay, it's like the opposite of a hometown discount. It's like, well, and the reason I brought up the Florida thing was that Florida has a no tax situation, so players take lesser contracts to play for Florida teams in the NHL. Because with taxes, it balances out a higher contract with another team. So, and people believe that's a competitive imbalance in the NHL. That's a different video for a different day. But yeah, I wonder if Parsons would be like, for Dallas, $45 million a year floor, for Raiders, Rams, whoever else, 42.
Good luck. Have a great weekend. We'll see you bright and early Monday morning for PFT Live, unless the world keeps turning and we need to come back and have a further conversation about whatever happens next between the Cowboys and Micah Parsons. Have a great weekend.
I got to get a tracksuit. All right, ladies and gentlemen, there you go. Like I said, I don't think he's going to move. I think this is a classic situation where you say, hey, here, I'm done talking. Here's the situation. And then Dallas is going to pay him. But there is that chance, and that chance is named Jerry Jones, that Dallas calls his bluff, and Micah Parsons could be a Raider, could be a Ram. All right, ladies and gentlemen, get on down in the comments below. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.